Welcome to Coffee Chat. Today, September the 17th. We're going to be talking today about the McCreary Manitoba 150 Heritage Project. And my guest today is Pam Little from McCreary that's been involved with this project, and many more from up there at McCreary as well. Welcome, Pam. Nice to have you here.
Nice to be here. Thanks, Dave.
Maybe first of all, Pam, just tell us a little bit about yourself, your background. I understand you're retired, semi-retired, whatever you might want to call it, and how you've moved into some of the things you're doing once you have retired.
Well, I retired from nursing, and which was pretty busy on its own, but then I moved back to McCreary. It is my hometown. I moved back there after being away for 35 years. And when I got back, the town had changed a lot. It's a lot smaller than it was when I was when I was a kid. And you know, I think I started to just volunteer for things because that's what runs small towns.
Absolutely.
Big towns too, I guess, but especially in small towns. And I just got involved with different community events and groups, and one of them was Heritage. I love history, and I like to think that we could preserve some of our heritage.
Some of that.
And there was a well-established committee.
How long had that been running for, perhaps?
They incorporated in 1992.
Oh, wow. So we're talking 30 years here.
Yeah, they started with a Satterthwaite cabin, which is a cabin 2 miles north of McCreary that they wanted to restore, and it's a log cabin, and they did a really nice job on it. And a local farmer donated the cabin, and some local construction guys did the work. The Tarrick brothers and Bill Floyd donated the land and the cabin.
That was one of their early projects, is what you're saying, but they've been doing many projects as time goes on. So since you've joined the committee, how long have you been involved?
I think I joined in about 2009. Not that long ago, compared to a lot of the people on the committee have been on it since '92. Like some of the original people are, one or two of them are still on it, and I'm the youngster, pretty well on the committee. So,
they'd be glad to get you.
Well, it's been really good. I do have some computer skills, not lots, but you know, that's one advantage for me and for the committee now, is to use those, because so much communication is by email or the internet. So
this particular project, you contacted NACTV, it might even be 4 months ago now, asking if you could get, would we be interested in some assistance for your this project that you were thinking of, the Manitoba 150 projects, because there were a number of pieces to it, I think, and you had a couple of students that were going to be on summer grant.
Yes.
So take me into the start of that project.
So we've our committee has wanted to do an oral history project for quite a while, but we haven't really known how to go about it, and we've had summer students for a number of years, and so I think we just started to think about how could we get the students involved, but because we didn't know what we were doing, we thought, well, we'll contact somebody who does interviewing and really records lots of history all the time. So we thought of NACTV, and we contacted you and asked if we could maybe borrow some equipment, and it came about that we were so happy because you came with equipment, you did training with us, and I think it was a first for you guys too, so it was
we've
great.
Done some training here locally. Some of our volunteers, we naturally train them on how to use the cameras and so on, but this is the first time I think we've actually gone out with a specific project in mind, and we're of course wanting to expand our coverage area and get people interested in watching NACTV from McCreary and other areas out in the Westman area. So we were real pleased to partner with you. And they say Rain and I went out on end of June it was, I think.
June 30th, I think it was.
And the two students, tell me again who they were.
Yeah, Chelsea Kaiser and Jeanette Annetz. and they're two students that were in grade 11 when they were hired, and they're now in grade 12 in McCreary. And one of them was a Young Canada Works student, and the other one is a provincial government youth program student. So their wages were subsidized by government programs, which we're very grateful for because we don't have a lot of money.
Yeah. And you were instrumental in getting those grants through and so on. You're the secretary, am I right?
Yes, I'm the secretary, and so yeah, I often apply for grants. That we apply for lots of grants, don't necessarily get them, but this one, the Manitoba 150 grant actually was given to Heritage for the Homecoming, which was supposed to be last year, but because of COVID we had to cancel it, and so they asked groups to reapply if they wanted to for other projects. So we reapplied for this Manitoba 150 celebration, so we could have a series of events in McCreary, community events.
Okay, now you've sent us some tape. I know we showed the event on August
1st.
August 1st, the event, like it was your homecoming event, was it?
It was supposed to be. That was when it was supposed to be on, but as you know, COVID meant that it had to be strictly 150 people were the maximum we could have. They had to be double vaccinated. We had lots of restrictions, but we decided to go ahead with a series of community events that could involve most people in McCreary. So we started with that one, and it was restricted, and but most people were really happy to just get out and go to a drive-in movie and listen to some music, have some good food, and we partnered with the McCreary Ag Society and also with Burrows Trail Arts Council. So those two groups also benefited, and we just wanted to finally get out and do something.
Yeah. I know we were all just wanting to get out and do something. Unfortunately, over the summer, the cases and that did subside a little bit, and a lot of summer activities did take place, and they were outside too, so they were much safer than they could have been before. So you've mentioned a couple of things that were on that day or that weekend.
Yeah, that was on the weekend. We had a drive-in movie, and we had a group called the Road Rebels came and cruised through town with their
the cars.
vehicles.
Yeah, we've had them on TV.
Yeah. So that was great. We had a concession, and we showed a historic movie about a plane crash in World War II that took place in Riding Mountain National Park.
Right, and I'm familiar with that. I've seen that movie.
Yeah, Mayday on the Mountain.
Yes,
it's a good movie, and so that was that event, and then we had 2 free days of swimming at the community pool, and so we sponsored that so that kids that maybe didn't have a season's pass or whatever could go swimming too. Yeah. And so we had a few events.
Well, that's great. I mean, the town really appreciated that. I'm sure that you and those other groups got together and organized these events and so on. That's wonderful to to hear that.
We also partnered with Harvest Sun Festival to do some pop-up concerts, which was a great idea too.
In that, because we had a couple of those in Neepawa.
Yes. Nadia had them in a lot of communities, and that was a great idea.
It definitely was. Yeah, we videoed both of those, so our viewers, if they've been watching, they would have seen those pop-up concerts that took place.
Yeah, we had one of her concerts at the museum, and we also had music at the museum a couple of Friday nights with a local band, the Penner Family.
Oh, yes.
And people really enjoy them. They're sort of like sing-alongs, and they're outdoors. One of them had to be canceled because it was pouring rain.
Oh, shucks.
But everybody was happy to have the rain.
Well, it certainly sounds like you were very busy over the summer. And now besides that, you had this bigger project, ongoing project with the 2 students. Oral history, I think you were calling it. Tell me how that got started and how the students made out with that and so on.
Well, we wanted to, and we still want to continue this project to preserve some of the voices of McCreary. So the way we started it was we wanted, for the students' sake and our sake, because we didn't know really what we were doing or getting into, we wanted to define it a bit. So we used what's called the McCreary Historic Walking Tour. And so we decided to start with that. So it's a walking tour. You can get a pamphlet that we've produced, and you can walk around town and read a little paragraph about each of the buildings, and how we thought, well, couldn't we put some of the voices that belong to those buildings? So someone who lived in the building, somebody who grew up with the family that originally built the building or are related to the building in some way, to speak to the building as we filmed it, so that you could actually, it's a virtual tour really, so you could walk around, you could see it on NAC TV, you know, you could watch the tour and maybe watch it on your phone and drive around McCreary and hear the voices of some of the people and the characters.
Yeah. I'll just mention right now that you've just brought that video in, and we'll be editing it in the next few days and so on. It will be up on air in a couple of weeks' time, and it will be called McCreary 150 Project or something like that. So you'll be able to find it on our schedules to look at it, and we'll also put it up on our YouTube channel so that people can access it later on as well.
Right.
And as well, I might even mention, you know, DVD copies of it would also be available for anybody that wanted to have their own copy. Just simply contact the TV station here. So, yeah.
Yes,
so
and we hope we would like to air it, you know, at the museum so people could watch it there too, and maybe it will be a great. We hope to have more of the oral history project done for our homecoming, which we hope will be next year. So that would be good. It's a great start for us. I mean, there's so many people we would like to interview, but it's time consuming, and this was a really good start. And
so how many sites are on the walking tour, and then how many of them were you able to do an interview with?
I think there's 9 or 10 sites, and we have, I think, 9 interviews.
Oh, good.
Yeah, so we did quite well. There's one example is the railway station, which is our museum now. Okay. That railway station, we have Penny Tomlin, who lived in the house. It's at one of the railway stations with the office, the waiting room, and then an actual living quarters.
Residence attached.
Yeah, so she lives in Victoria, and she was good enough to be interviewed over Zoom, and we have her interview. And then we have an interview with Bob Gillis, who was the last station master there.
Okay.
So those two will go along with they sort of bring the place to life.
That's
really
what you're trying to do, of course, isn't it?
And,
You're trying to
get
bring
the stories.
Yeah, the stories of it.
Yeah.
Well, they've done a really good job, I think. The students I remember the day we were there, Rain and I were very impressed with these 2 young girls, Chelsea and Jeanette, as to, you know, how quickly they picked up what we were trying to teach them, and we practiced some skills with them for interviewing and so on. And you're telling me that they really came along, did they?
Yes, they did. And I think the people that were interviewed really enjoyed being interviewed by the students. The students both were enthused about interviewing, and I mean, they went away from the summer with these new skills. You know, they learned to film. At that day that you spent with them, I mean, they were quite excited about, you know, the interview process and what you taught them, and then the experience of doing it was great.
It was great.
Yeah, yeah. I think they both that sort of made what could be a less exciting summer more exciting, and they met some really interesting people.
I'll bet they've established a bit of relationship between, you know, a young person themselves and an older person, mostly that they interviewed. So you mentioned the railway station. Is there another 1 or 2 that we should be looking forward to particularly seeing?
Well, I think all of them will be quite good, but and actually there's one that we hope to add, but with Linda Jacobson. Her dad had a store in McCreary that is one of the oldest buildings in McCreary, but we've had some issues with timing for her she lives in Florida. But some of the other ones that we did, the Doucette house, and Elaine Doucette grew up in that house. It was her family's house for all their lives, and they also had a jewelry store in McCreary, so she's going to talk about growing up there, but also about her dad's business as a jeweler, and then what it was like to experience the house. The other one that is interesting, and there's been lots written about the Canton family, but I think what's special about this is it's one of the younger Cantons. She's still in her 60s, but which is all relatively young, I think.
Yeah.
But anyways, Joan Bridges, who was a Canton, she talks about the memories of going to that house to visit her grandparents.
Okay, yeah.
And so that's a different take. It's not somebody who lived in the house, but it's someone who visited the house.
Sure.
And she talks a lot about her grandparents and their influence on her life. And then Mrs. Canton, her grandmother was the Silver Cross mother when Diefenbaker was the prime minister, and she went to Ottawa and laid the wreath. And she lost 3 sons in the war, but she also had 10 children, and all of them went to war. All of them enlisted.
And so you've not recaptured, but you recorded that history for
So
how long is the video, do you think, in total? Are we talking an hour maybe? Maybe put it
probably, I would think so. You know, the walking tour probably would take people about an hour to just walk around and read about it. But when you're reading it, you're only getting a little paragraph about when it was built, who lived there maybe. I mean, most of the interviews were very, they brought a lot of stories, like interesting stories. We have an interview with the Timlick family who lived in the house that I grew up in McCreary, but they actually renovated the renovated house and found a door behind a wall.
Oh, really?
And wondered what that door was. Well, as a kid, I remember that door actually being there. And so that was interesting to hear and get that question. The students were asked that question. They said, well, we found this door, and then I got to say, oh, well, I know that door.
Yeah, I just had an idea. Will the edited version be in the order of the walking tour?
I hope so.
We better make sure it is, because I can see people, if we've got this up on YouTube, that they could simply walk around with their phone, and you've got an oral history of your walking tour.
Yes, and we would like to add to it. We did interview 2 of the Fletcher family, which is a well-known family. They actually, their farm is actually the south side of McCreary.
Okay.
So if you can imagine McCreary with number 50 highway north, that's the original town, and then number 50 highway south was a farm. And Fletcher, you'll see that our streets are named Fletcher Avenue, Aileen Drive, Beverly Drive. Those are 2 daughters. They were Fletchers.
Is it called Fletcher Park, the little park?
Yeah, and that was part of the farm, and it was donated to the village of McCreary.
Well, I know the name Fletcher because my mother and father were friends of the
Albert and Jean.
Albert, I remember that name. Jean, I'm not sure
that's his wife.
Could have remembered, but I think, in fact, I know I set pins at the bowling alley at Clear Lake.
At Clear Lake.
And I think they owned the bowling alley at Clear
did.
Lake. So I know Mrs. Fletcher well.
So we interviewed 2 of their daughters.
Oh, okay.
There were more than 2. There were 4 daughters, but we interviewed Beverly from Beverly Street and Sandy, who doesn't have a street named after her, but We're not sure why.
Well,
But anyways, both of them were interviewed. They came out from Winnipeg. I mean, people were very enthused about this project.
I can see why, and why wouldn't they be? So the town really got involved and behind it. So were there like some further suggestions? People must have offered help with names and things, did they?
Oh, yes. And people, they would come up to me and say, oh, we think you should interview so-and-so,
Yes.
He's got great information. And so that's, you keep adding to the list, and hopefully we can do more interviews.
Right. So your role in this, besides kind of supervising the students, which I take it after a while didn't take too much supervising.
No.
So what was your role? What else did you do with the project? Contacts or?
Yes, often because I know more of the people in McCreary, I could contact them and just make people aware of why we were doing it, and make them more comfortable with the idea of the students coming. Often they came into their homes to interview them. Some people came to the museum. Some people we did it via Zoom because they lived far away. And other people we went into their homes, or the students went into their homes.
One of the main points that we taught them that day, or did explain to them, and hopefully they took it to mind, and they obviously did, was to make the interviewee comfortable.
Yeah.
Before getting going and during the interview as well. We talked about, and in fact, I remember that day we showed them a little bit. I interviewed Chelsea, just so they could get an idea what to do. And then I said, Chelsea, you're going to interview me.
Yeah.
And she did a wonderful job. She really did. And then Jeanette, interviewed Rain after Rain had interviewed her. So they had a little bit of experience, I guess, before they went out.
Yes, and that experience really helped them for them to feel comfortable, and for the other people to feel comfortable. And I've had feedback from the people they interviewed saying that that was so enjoyable. And even we had a bit of a glitch where we deleted a couple of the interviews, and we had to go back and interview them, or the students had to go back, and they were quite enthused to do it again.
To redo it.
And
I'll do it better this time.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. Actually, one of the people wrote down notes because she had left out some things in the first interview.
She wanted to put in.
She thought it was good that she got a second chance. But nobody refused the students, so that was a good sign.
Yes.
And we have a whole list of people who would be interviewed, or want to be interviewed, or have been suggested by other people.
Yes.
So we need to figure out how to keep it ongoing,
Right. So, it wouldn't be the walking tour, but you can still do oral history of other events, perhaps, or as part of it. It could be part two.
Yes.
Not necessarily the site, but of a number of events that went on, and how they were organized, or what happened, how long they've been going, that sort of thing.
Yeah. And also there's people that have been on committees even for a long, long time, and have seen the evolution of the community, which would be interesting. Or logging was once a big industry in our area, and there are people that are still living that actually logged, and that's one that's a pet one of mine. I'd like to see us get some information on that from living souls that are,
The fact, I think, that the History Committee has been active, and I mean active, not just having the odd meeting, over 30 years. The community knows and respects the work that they do, and would feel comfortable working with them because they know what a wonderful job they've done. So it's really nice to be able to pat the committee on the back for having been successful over the years.
It is an amazing committee, actually. We have our past president, Irene Boydo, is in her 90s, and she is still, will phone people to tell them about the meeting coming up. She agreed to be interviewed, and there's it's a great committee there, and many of the people on the committee have been involved in establishing the heritage sites in McCreary, and and the collection also.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So.
It's people viewing. We go across all of Manitoba and across Canada, for that matter. McCreary, Manitoba. I think somebody might be phoning you, perhaps, to see how you organize, how it works so wonderfully in a small town. Maybe they've been struggling with their town to try to get something like that going. History projects and history remembrances and so on. That your phone might be ringing off the wall.
Or your phone, because
or ours,
if it
perhaps.
hadn't been for NACTV, this project, I mean, we didn't have a camera. We didn't, that could record.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, we had started with a couple on phones, but I mean, the quality of the equipment is much better. And I mean, you could do it just with your phones, but we found that it was much easier, and we had a tripod, which made a big difference. And so we really appreciate your involvement.
Well, we were glad to get people involved and get extra footage. We're always asking people on our News and Views show, if there's anything happening in your community, send us a video, or come if there's something or other. We do, we'll loan out our equipment if it's available for events and so on, for people that want to do that. Of course, we expect video to come back, and we have the permission to be shared owners in it.
Yes.
Because we've been involved in the production of it and so on. So hopefully we'll encourage others to do that as well. So, well, I think have we covered anything? Is there anything else that you can think of, Pam, that you wanted to add or say?
Well, I should actually thank Manitoba 150 also.
Yes.
It was a grant that they provided that started this whole series of events that we could put on in McCreary, including the oral history. And we have, it is ongoing, and just that, thank you, Manitoba 150, because that's, and it goes along with Manitoba 150 so well, because we're recording history.
That's why you got the grants, I'm sure. Plus, they knew how good job that you do. Well, thank you, Pam, for coming in today, for bringing the video, and we're going to get on it so that it can be shown to people and shared.
That's great.
And thank you for sharing your experience and talking to us today.
Well, thank you for all your help. It's been great. Good experience.
Well, I hope you've enjoyed the program today. My name's Dave Bennet for Coffee Chat here at NACTV.